Creamer Media's Mining Weekly Online is talking to Murphy Morobi and Rick Mennel, the co-chairs of City Year South Africa, an organization born 10 years ago in one of Johannesburg's historic mining houses. At the time, 10 years ago, Mining Weekly spoke to the originators of the idea, who were at 56 Main Street, Johannesburg, headquarters of the unbundled Angloval Mining, which became Avmin. We've returned 10 years later to the CBD to find out what has been achieved with City Year South Africa, a crucial organization that engages young people meaningfully in a year of full-time voluntary service. 1,683 youth have done City Year service, and 23,000 pupils have benefited from after-school assistance.
If our biggest question in South Africa is what are we going to do with the 700,000 or 800,000 young people in each year group who are not coming out with a great education and who do not have job opportunities every year, adding to the 3 to 4 million kids under 25 who don't have jobs already, what are we going to do? It's the most pressing question in our society today. We believe that voluntary civilian social service is the best one, not military service. Social voluntary service. It's the cheapest way to prepare people for the world of work in the system, to bridge that gap, that big gap that we have. And so we've worked really hard to keep City Year alive as a model which can answer the big question as it becomes a more and more important question in our society. And right now we figure it's got to be one of the most important questions, not just in South Africa but in the world.
Its establishment in South Africa was on the back of encouragement from Nelson Mandela.
City is a universal model. The values that we espouse, the way in which we work, are tools we, in many cases, taken from longer experience in the States, but they apply perfectly well in the South African team run by South Africans. They apply very well in a developed market like the UK, which has great inequalities, and they've just opened up a branch in Manchester. The UK, City Year, our cousins do similar work. It's particularly well suited to divided societies like South Africa, where you need to reach across the bridge and show the faith. We're trying to build enough momentum to spread this to many similar organizations and hopefully in the end make it a public sector initiative at scale. But again, very much not a military one. Other people have been calling for military-based programs based on military resources with some element of military training. We're very much against that. We think it needs to be a voluntary civilian activity supported in civil society.
The word scale up has been mentioned. You've done 10 years of good work here laying a foundation. Is there potential now to scale up?
One of the things in having existed for 10 years is that I believe that we have the basis for scale. I mean, we started in Johannesburg because it lended itself for a good startup, but we still have a vision of going to other cities as well. But the challenge will continue to be resources.
It's very cheap when you look at its full impact on people's lives, and particularly when you count the number of young learners that are affected and influenced for the better by our volunteers. But it costs somewhere between 40 and 50,000 rand a volunteer all in every year. And that's much higher than the standard for youth service, which has been set of 18,000, which we think is not adequate. So there's a funding challenge. But the return on investing 40 to 50,000 rand in young people each year is enormous, and the opportunity cost of having people out of work indefinitely into their 20s and 30s is also enormous. We represent a partnership of government, of the education departments where we serve, who welcome us and invite us in, the municipality, the Metro of Joburg, funders from the corporate sector, foundations, South African individuals, foreigners who like what we're doing in South Africa. So when you put it all together, one of our biggest supporters has been the Department of Environment and Tourism, and they support with 5 million rand a year at the moment. We deliver to them young service volunteer programs. The military training is break them down, build them up so that they obey orders. And that's not what we're about. We're about self-directed citizens who are volunteering to serve their fellow citizens in a thoughtful and principled way. That's what it's about, and the military process cannot achieve those values.
We are able to bring out of our system young people who are fairly rounded, who in fact are the envy of some of the HR functionaries in some of the businesses in terms of the ability of these young people to exhibit a very high EQ.
We would love to see hundreds of thousands of young people going into a year of service. We think it would transform South Africa. This is a comprehensive training in being a grown-up citizen in South Africa in a constitutional democracy through work.
These young people exhibit such a strong sense of initiative.
10% of them have gone and started their own business. Not only do we now have a director of City here in Johannesburg who's an alumnus of our first year, Daleen van Buren, but we've also got an alumnus, Danny Tong, who started his own capital investment business and has become the first alumnus contributor to City here. So he's made a sizable donation from his own pocket, from his business that he's built from nothing. My commitment to this sector was triggered personally in, I think, 2001 or 2. I was driving to a luxury game lodge in Sabi somewhere, and I went through, the mountains around there in Bushbuck Ridge, and I passed a high school leaving, breaking up for the day, and 400 incredibly bright-faced, energetic kids poured out into the street, chattering and engaging, and working as one does in a number of projects on education, trying to improve the education system, coordinate between public and private sector, CSI programs for corporates. You know the numbers, and the numbers are that 5% of those 400 have a chance of getting gainful employment and improving their lives. It's a shocking statistic. And I just looked at these kids and I thought, my God, what a tragedy. And that's what drives us. And I think it drives everybody who has a care for the country.
So that was Creamer Media's Mining Weekly Online, talking to Murphy Morobe and Rick Mennell, the co-chairs of City Year South Africa.